I am very concerned. Over the past few days, I've been getting information coming into me that's really made me concerned for the robotics industry. So I've had several people phone me in the last couple of days telling me how toxic it's becoming in many of these companies. And I'm not going to name the companies. People have been quite honest and open with me. And yeah, I think it's pretty concerning. I don't know why suddenly there's been this toxicity that's come, but it usually comes when there's a panic, and it usually concerns over money, and it usually means that people are running out of money or not hitting the revenues, or something's happening where people suddenly become under pressure, usually the management team or the board or the investors. And what I've understood is that many of these companies have started to take a little bit of a toxic turn. They're firing some key people. I've heard one of the companies is laying off some people. I've heard that there's immense pressure on the sales. I've heard that there are toxic conversations. I've heard that the management is becoming, demanding of where's the sales based on projections that were made 5 years ago with very little basis. So I've just heard that there's a growing sort of disquiet within many of the robotics companies, and management are making irrational decisions as well. That's what I'm sort of feeling on this. So if you're in one of these companies and you're an employee, quite often you'll be asking, why is everyone suddenly become so aggressive, so nasty, why has it become so toxic in here? Well, one of the explanations I might give you at the minute, in my mind, is that it could be that the investors have gone into panic mode. A lot of people will start needing more money soon, and global economic crisis often triggers this. So when you look at things like the Iran war, and that the stocks are falling and that oil is going up, there usually is an impact on liquidity in the markets for investors. And a lot of the investors also have, they have money in different places, so they're going to be panicking that they're not going to be able to get money for their funds, or not going to be able to give money to the company funds. So generally what happens is there's a sudden sort of, oh my god, what's happening, how's the revenues? And then you start getting these questions: how's the revenues? What's the deal pipeline look like? And if it doesn't look as good as they think, they say, we've got to cut now, we've got to cut heads now. So they start cutting heads. Or people just put on massive pressure. Where's the sales? Where's the sales? There's usually just this huge toxicity that grows, and civility goes out of the window. Now, this is not every company. Some are doing okay, and some are sort of handling it well. But I would say in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I've had enough people call me from different companies, just asking me, what's out there, what jobs are out there, etc. What could they potentially look at? Because they are so concerned about the toxicity, the pressure, the problems within their companies. Now, I'm not saying that the companies are going to go under anything, but what I'm going to say to the management teams first is, if you're a management team in one of these companies, you cannot put that down on the people. That is just really bad. You can't get a kicking off your board, or a worry about your board, or a worry from your investors, and then suddenly decide that what you're going to do is you're going to basically push that down to everybody else. It's known as kicking the dog. So what you can't do is have a bad day with your investors, or a bad day with your board, or they ask you some hard questions and you just come and kick the dog, i.e. go to your VP of sales, go to your VP of marketing, cut the budgets, cut the sales. Where's the sales? Where's the numbers? I really just request, if you're in a senior management position within one of these companies, take a deep breath and make sure that you do this wisely, because if you lose the people, you will lose everything, and you can't cut your way to success. I've learned that the hard way. You cannot cut your way to success in surgical robotics. Also, if you do that, your customers will lose faith. The news will get out there and they'll lose faith. So, if you're the investors or board members at a company, do not panic. I've seen it before where the panic created absolute chaos. This is a blip, okay? And liquidity will come back, and gold will change, and oil will change, and all that. You have to actually My advice to you as a board is, if you believe in the product, you believe in your investment thesis, you believe in what you invested in originally, this is the time to double down actually and say, we've got your back. We have your back in this crisis time. If the revenues are not there, you can't just say, make more revenue. That doesn't work that way. Instead, what you actually have to do is you have to go back and say, have we got our models wrong? Have we got the models wrong because it was all a guess back then when we invested? Is the model still valid today? And if not, reassess and re-look at the models. And that can include some cutting, but try and not cut the people. The people are your number one assets. And it takes 18 months to replace someone. If you bring in a new VP of sales in a region or a country or of your whole company, don't suddenly expect them to just make the miracle of the revenue shoot up. It will take 18 months before they even understand it properly. So that's not a quick fix by any means or any shout. So my advice would be, lean in and ask, okay, how do we help? How do we stem some of the money going out? Are you wasting it on frivolous things? Offices? Are you wasting it on parties? Are you wasting it on travel? Look at travel, okay? You will have a lot of people telling you that they have to fly business. That should be age-based, which is on risk-based of DVTs and things like that. It shouldn't be on just because it's a long flight. And you shouldn't, certainly, there's a lot of companies out there will be sending R&D folks around the world or engineers around the world business class. Don't do it. The second thing is ask, do I really need to send those people on a flight at all? Because it's hotels, it's flight, it's taxes, it's food, it's entertainment, it's all of that stuff. Ask whether you really need to do it at this moment and just cut the travel rather than cut the people. Have them do all the things that are more effective within the company. Have them helping a little bit with the sales team, giving them more information or preparing them better collaterals or something, but just don't cut the people. That's not the way to do this. Now, if you're over bloated, that's a different concern, but this shouldn't be a panic now. But what I will say is that investors, boards, do not become toxic. I am hearing many of you, and I know who you are becoming extremely toxic, extremely nasty. You are thinking money first and you're thinking company and people last. And ultimately, you can't do that. I can tell you from experience, you cannot do that. You will destroy your company. So think long and hard, no knee-jerk reactions. Now, generally, back to the toxicity. If you've got that toxicity going on, then what I would say is all of you need to just take a chill pill and you've got to reduce the toxicity. If you're being abused by somebody, call them out to HR, call them out to senior management, call them out to their faces and say, hey, you cannot talk to me like that. You have no right to talk to me like that. You don't own me. You are an employee. You're not a slave. So you've got to make sure that basically they're not trying to treat you in a toxic, nasty way as if you are a piece of property that they own, because no company owns you. And what you've got to do is you've got to be firm, professional, and say, right, I'm going to tell you once, you need to stop the toxicity. And if they don't do it, put it in writing to them. And just say to them, now you're in writing with someone on copy. And ultimately, the CEO is responsible. So all my friends are the CEOs of the companies out there. I will say to you, do a quick audit, send a questionnaire around to all of your team and ask them, is it becoming toxic in our company? And if it is, you need to act on that immediately, because there's enough people out there talking to me that it's a concern. And again, I'm not going to name names, not going to say which companies they are, which CEOs they are, which managements they are, which people are being toxic, but it's getting out there in the community. So I would make sure that if I was running one of these companies, I'd be trying to understand, have recent events of different things like pressure within the market, not selling and hitting our numbers. The Iran war is causing concerns from the investors. People have just not had the money back. All these really, I'm sure, valid reasons why people should be concerned cannot spew over into toxic behavior and just into panic and knee-jerk reactions. And I think everyone at the minute, I would just have a real request that everybody takes stock of the situation, understand from their teams, Treat people like human beings, please. And if you do have to reduce some numbers, also do it in a civil, humane way, because you will not get a second chance to do that again. And I can tell you, if you just fire people, when all this panic goes and you suddenly realize you need more people, you are going to have a company that's a burned asset. Everyone in the industry will be talking about it and basically saying this is a terrible company to work for, and you will not get the best quality people ever again. And you're going to need them because it's people who make these businesses, not the actual robot. The other thing I would definitely give a piece of advice to the senior management is stop interfering. If people have a good plan and a solid plan, you can't work around them or go under them or undermine them or take the legs out from under them and just make sudden rash decisions. That, again, is just a terrible thing that feels like toxicity. It feels like people are not really doing, not being allowed to do their job and being left alone. And that's what you pay them for, that's what they are. So bottom line, yeah, I'm going to say it again, I'm really concerned. It's just been too many people in the last couple of weeks from too many companies. And it tells me that there's a panic in the industry, there's a panic in the finance community, there's a panic at the board levels. And I really would encourage you all to just take a massive deep breath at the minute and think about, how do we do this the right way? And again, if you have to downsize or you have to get rid of people, humanely, in conversation with them, with explanation. One of the worst things you can do is just say, by the way, we've let you all go, and not explain why, not explain the rationale, because people will then jump to conclusions such as, oh, we're being sold, or oh, we've run out of money, or oh, the product doesn't work, or etc., etc. Don't allow that to happen. Control the narrative. If you do have to let people go because you're not hitting the revenues or you're not got the investment coming in, humanely, in a controlled way, with an explanation. People are big boys and girls, and they'll understand it and they'll get it. They won't be happy, but they'll get it. And what won't happen is they won't trash you and your company, which can happen, by the way. So yeah, that's really it for today. And it does ultimately, all of this lies with the CEOs. So if you're one of the CEOs, the buck stops with you, from the board down and from the company up, from the investors down, from the customers up. The buck actually stops with you as the CEO. So I'll be asking all my friends who are CEOs, if you can take a really good look at your companies and just make sure that there's no toxicity creeping in, and that if you are doing things, you do it in the right way. Cheers.